generational poem, and then you would follow accordingly that way. The reality is, though, even if you look in the book like this, is that not every family branch follows the generation poem. So sometimes you'll see like just everybody in certain branches, and I'm talking like big parts of the tree, everybody uses something common, but it doesn't match the actual poem. So that's just kind of one challenge you have. But most important is because these names were not something that day-to-day people use, and especially the immigrants that came to America, or Hawaii in my case, they didn't use these names daily. So the only record you have of it is if someone wrote about them later, maybe when they died, they might have a little footnote saying, oh, this is his name, and by the way, this was his other name. Or in like some government interviews, like if you go to Angel Island records, they might be interviewed, and one of the questions they don't ask the people is like, so what are your names? It was such a common practice that the U.S. immigration officials would ask people, what are your Chinese names? And you have people saying, my name is owyang, my marriage name is Isong. So that's a clue that if you're trying to research it and you're trying to figure out how you're linked that way. So for my personal example, my great-grandfather, Owyang, he's not listed as Ai in the book. He's listed under a different name. This is Isong. But that's actually a pronunciation from the local Jungsan dialect. In Mandarin, it's Ruxing, which doesn't sound anything like that. And to make matters complicated, even in Cantonese, it doesn't sound the same way either. I think it's Yusing, I think, is in Cantonese. So that's a bit of a challenge there. So you have males, you have to find them, you have to know these names. Females, they may not be in the book. But there is some other information. Sometimes they'll have some little footnotes. So like if somebody, a male descendant, Owyang descendant, was somebody like, let's say they passed an imperial exam for like scholars and they achieved a rank, they make a little note of that. If they held a government post, they might make a note of that as well. And they might also have some notes about other names they had, like so these marriage names, these other ceremonial names, they might list that as well. They typically will list the number of sons each person would have if they had male sons or male heirs. And sometimes they might list the number of daughters, but they may or may not list the names there. Okay. So that's kind of like the framework of it. What I've done here on the wall, I know Grant talked a little bit about his part of the family tree, but the Chinese language pages are sort of clumped here. The very top level are like the earliest generations, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and then the big long line of Chinese characters. These are all roughly the same generations. I couldn't put them all in one line across, but so some of these other ones are also the same level. General rule of thumb though is most immigrants who came in America from China were roughly about the same generation, give or take. So, you know, you can kind of do the math, kind of going back to the tree. Okay. Now what about this book? Now the book itself is all Chinese, so if you get one of these, the way it works usually, you would go to the village, you would visit the village, you would have met with a historian, and they might present you with this book. Here you go. You're now young. Well, if they verified you really were supposed to be there, they give you one. And they don't, I don't think they'd ask for money, they just say, here it is for you. It's all in Chinese, and maybe the historian might mark a page and say, I think this is your family copy. I have to tell you my story. But the first time I went there, he couldn't find the name, he marked it, and I checked it, but after doing research later, I found it was wrong. So, but anyway, the only English in here, there are some, like, sometimes they have some state names for, like, I think people were, like, professors in certain colleges, they might have this spell Oregon or something like that here. Yeah, but the only real English is the front title page, and the title page says, the historical data and genealogical table of the Owyang family for 4,700 years. Okay, so, but the interesting thing is the family tree doesn't go back 4,700 years. Although it's still pretty impressive, the oldest name in the family tree is a man by Rongke, or Wing Ko in Cantonese, and he dates back to the Southern Song Dynasty, which is somewhere about, like, roughly, let's call it 800 years ago. So you have a continuous family tree roughly 800 years back. And so you're dating, now we're probably into 20-something generations from that person on to today. I've seen some family trees for Owyang that mention the generations being in the hundreds. And I think I mentioned this in the last reunion. That's because, and that ties into this reference to being 4,700 years of family history. So, obviously the top person in this book is not the oldest Owyang in existence. He has a late claim to fame because he's like one of the first Owyang's, if not the first Owyang to move into Guangdong province through that village, or that town that Steve was just talking about. So that general thing people say, like, oh, they moved from the north to the south. Okay, that's kind of roughly what we're talking about. So that's what the book actually tracks. Okay, but the book actually doesn't spell out a tree going beyond that. I did do a little research. I found another tree or two that purport to have that go back further, and they seem to have his name in their book, their trees as well. So I was trying to do some rough counts. It's kind of tough to say how many generations, because there are gaps in the tree. Like one tree doesn't mention the gaps. It's kind of like have lines that kind of like from here to here. It's a longer line. Okay. And then I'm looking at another tree, and there'll like be a gap between them, and I think it says, if I can understand the Chinese, oh, there are 28 generations missing here. So you don't have this like real continuous sun up connection. But the one that I was looking at, and I have to verify it, it looked like from the top guy in our book's family tree up to this the king, the Yu the Great, the Xia dynasty. You know, I think he would have been like 107 generations from that top guy. So if you believe the story, that it goes from all the way up to that person, then that's where maybe these numbers come from, 100 and something, add on to the 20 something plus generations in Guangdong. It's hard to verify. Even they say historically they don't know if that person really existed, or if it was like a combination of different people at that time. It's really there's no real good evidence of that. But the fact that there's this long-standing history of oral history of talking about the family origins, it's very fascinating that way. So one other note. So we talked about a little bit. Obviously, the majority of people have some connection with Dailong village in Zhongshan. We have some Maji cousins here as well, and I know there's some Suntak. These Hanley back there is some owyang, and there probably might be some other owyang from other parts of China as well. So the question is, do these trees actually show us how we're connected? Well, once again, if you believe the trees, the top guy in this book, the owyang owyang, it was probably his great-grandson, and supposedly of his great-grandsons, there were some that went to different places, and those included Dailong, Maji, and Suntak. So either brothers or cousins went to those different places. So if you believe that, then at least, and if you can track that, that's where the common ancestors would be. So yeah, we are related in that way. So that's the book. The only other thing I'll mention is people always ask me, am I updating this book? No.
Why not?
It's also, it's kind of like a historical record in that, when they wrote these books, they weren't thinking about things like, well, they weren't obviously thinking about female people carrying the name on. They were always thinking about like marriages in a certain way and the naming convention. So it's not really a modern genealogical structure how you would track your family trees the way you'd like to. And so I view it as something that's kind of like a document I'm not really going to update. I just kind of help people explain it, and then that kind of ties into how you can update your own family histories and so on. And if you want to take it further, we'll let my next speaker kind of talk about it a little bit. But I know Grant Din has worked on this other sheet, which is like the family tree you see in what we call English on the wall here. And that's taking some modern regular tools and kind of trying to mix all the information together. But basically, that's the story of this book, the big book. I don't know when they were going to plan to update it next. They didn't really talk about that. There are always kind of vague terms about it. I think they may say like, oh yeah, we're going to work on, it'll be another 60 years or something like that. So, stay tuned. Maybe the next time you go to the village, they might have something like this, another version. But that's what it is. So, and by the way, so if you look in the pages and you don't see anything marked there, you can always pencil it in if you know exactly where it is. I can try and help you. I'm not really fluent in Chinese, but I can read a little. And I hope you enjoyed it.